November 8, 1977, 11:47 p.m. Fred Rogers was alone in the WQED studios in Pittsburgh. Everyone else had gone home hours ago. The building was dark, except for Fred's office, where a single lamp glowed. Fred was working on scripts for next week's episodes. He did this often, stayed late when the building was quiet, when he could think without interruption. He was reading through a scene about Daniel Tiger being afraid of the dark when he heard it. A crash. Glass breaking. Coming from somewhere in the building. Fred froze. Someone was inside. Fred stood up slowly, walked to his office door, listened. Footsteps. Heavy, unsteady, moving through the hallway. Then he heard a voice. A man's voice. Talking to himself. "Nobody here. Just need somewhere warm. Just for tonight." Fred quietly picked up the phone on his desk. Dialed security. A voice answered immediately. "Security. Who is this?" "This is Fred Rogers. I'm in my office. Someone just broke into the building. Are you safe? Can you lock your door?" "I think so. But stay where you are. I'm calling the police. They'll be there in 5 minutes." Fred hung up the phone. And then he did something that no one, not security, not the police, not even Joanne would have expected. He opened his office door. And he walked toward the intruder. The man was in the studio, the main set where Fred filmed Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. He was sitting on the floor, leaning against the trolley tracks. His clothes were filthy. His face was weathered, unshaven. His hands were shaking. Fred stood in the doorway, watching him. The man didn't notice Fred at first. He was rocking slightly, muttering to himself. "Just need to get warm. Just tonight. Then I'll go. Nobody needs to know." Fred spoke gently. "Hello." The man's head snapped up. His eyes went wide, terrified. "I am sorry. I didn't mean I'll leave. I'm sorry." He tried to stand up, but his legs wouldn't cooperate. He was exhausted. Maybe sick. "It's all right," Fred said. "You don't have to leave." The man stared at him. "What? You're cold. And you're tired. It's all right. I broke your window. I'm sorry. I didn't have anywhere else to go." Fred walked slowly into the studio, sat down on the floor about 10 feet away from the man. Not too close. Didn't want to scare him. "What's your name?" Fred asked. "Robert." "Robert. My name is Fred." Robert's eyes narrowed. You're Mr. Rogers. I've seen you. On TV. "Yes, that's me. Are you gonna call the cops?" "Security already called them. They're on their way." Robert's face fell. "Okay, I understand. I'll wait here. I'll wait here." There was a long silence. Then Fred said, "Robert, when the police get here, I'm going to tell them something. And I need you to know what I'm going to say." "Okay, I'm going to tell them that you're my guest, that I invited you here, and that you didn't break in." Robert stared at him. "What? Why would you say that?" "Because you're not a criminal. You're a person who needed help. And I don't think you should be arrested for that. But I broke your window. We can fix the window. What I can't fix is sending you to jail when what you really need is a warm place to sleep and a meal." Robert started crying. Not loud, just quiet tears running down his dirty face. "I haven't eaten in 3 days, he whispered. Fred nodded. "Then let's take care of that." 2 police officers arrived 5 minutes later. The security guard led them to the studio. They burst in, hands on their weapons, expecting a dangerous situation. Instead, they found Fred Rogers sitting on the floor, talking quietly with a homeless man. "Mr. Rogers?" One of the officers said. "Are you all right?" Fred stood up, smiled. "I'm fine, officer. Thank you for coming so quickly." Security said someone broke in. There was a misunderstanding. This is Robert. He's my guest. I invited him here." The officer looked at Robert, then at Fred. "Sir, security said they heard glass breaking." "Oh, that? Yes. Robert accidentally broke a window on his way in. It was dark. Easy mistake to make. We'll get it fixed tomorrow." The officer wasn't buying it. "Mr. Rogers, did this man break into your building?" Fred met his eyes. "No, officer. Robert is my guest." There was a long pause. The officer looked at Robert again, took in his appearance, the filthy clothes, the obvious homelessness. "Mr. Rogers, with all due respect, I don't think that's true." "Officer, I'm telling you that Robert is here as my guest, and I would very much appreciate it if you didn't arrest him." The two officers looked at each other. One of them sighed. "Mr. Rogers, we can't just ignore a break-in." "I'm not asking you to ignore anything. I'm telling you there was no break-in. Robert is my guest. And if you arrest him, you'll be arresting someone I invited into my own building." The officer hesitated. Then he said, "Fine, but we need to take a report. And we need to talk to Robert." "Of course. Take as long as you need." Asterisk, the officers questioned Robert. Gently, because Fred was watching. "Where are you from?" "Pittsburgh." "Born here. Do you have any family?" Robert shook his head. "Not anymore. Where have you been staying?" "Wherever I can. Shelters when they have room. Streets when they don't." "Why did you break into this building?" Robert looked at Fred, then back at the officer. "I was cold. I saw the light on. I thought maybe I could just sleep here for a few hours, where it was warm. I didn't think anyone would be here." The officer wrote everything down. Then he turned to Fred. "Mr. Rogers, you're sure you don't want to press charges?" "I'm sure." "All right. We'll file a report. But if you change your mind, I won't." "Thank you, officers." They left. Asterisk, Fred and Robert were alone again. "Why did you do that?" Robert asked quietly. "Do what?" "Lie to the cops." "I did break in." "You know I did." Fred sat down again. "I didn't lie, Robert. I said you were my guest. And you are. From the moment I decided not to let them arrest you, you became my guest. But why? You don't know me. I could be dangerous." "Are you dangerous?" "No, but you didn't know that. I took a chance. Because you looked like someone who needed help, not someone who needed to be arrested." Robert was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "I'm a veteran. Army. 2 tours in Vietnam. Came back in '72. Everything was different. I couldn't hold a job. Couldn't sleep. Kept having nightmares. My wife left. Took my daughter. I started drinking. Lost everything." Fred listened. Didn't interrupt. Just listened. "I've been on the streets for 3 years," Robert continued. "I'm not proud of it. But I don't know how to get out. Every shelter is full. Every program has a waiting list. I'm tired, Mr. Rogers. I'm so tired." "I'm sorry, Robert. That sounds incredibly hard. Why are you being nice to me?" "I broke into your building. I could have stolen something. I could have hurt you, but you didn't. You just wanted somewhere warm to sleep. That's not a crime, Robert. That's survival." Robert started crying again. "I don't deserve this. Your kindness. I don't deserve it. Everyone deserves kindness, Robert. Especially when they're struggling." Fred stood up. "Come on. Where?" "I'm taking you to get something to eat." "When's the last time you had a hot meal?" "I told you. 3 days ago. Then let's fix that. It's almost midnight. Nothing's open. There's a diner 2 blocks from here. Ritter's. It's open 24 hours. I know the owner." Robert hesitated. "I don't have any money." "I'm not asking you for money. I'm inviting you to dinner. I can't let you do that. Yes, you can. Come on. Fred walked toward the door, stopped, turned around. Robert was still sitting on the floor. Robert, I'm not going to force you, but I'm going to that diner, and I'd like you to come with me as my guest. Robert slowly stood up. Okay. They walked 2 blocks through the cold Pittsburgh night. Fred in his cardigan, Robert in his torn jacket. When they got to Ritter's Diner, the owner, a man named Joe, looked up from behind the counter. Fred? What are you doing here so late? Hi, Joe. This is my friend Robert. We're both pretty hungry. Do you have a table for us? Joe looked at Robert, took in his appearance, the dirt, the smell. He looked back at Fred. Fred smiled. Please, Joe, we're both hungry. Joe sighed. Yeah, okay. Sit wherever you want. They sat in a booth in the back. A waitress brought menus. She tried not to stare at Robert, but it was hard. Fred ordered coffee, a cheeseburger, fries. He handed the menu to Robert. Order whatever you want. Robert's hands were shaking. I don't know. What sounds good? Everything. I'm so hungry. Then order a lot. It's okay. Robert ordered a cheeseburger, fries, a bowl of soup, a piece of pie, and coffee. When the waitress left, Robert said, I can't pay you back for this. I'm not asking you to. But, Robert, this is a gift. No strings attached. I'm not keeping track. I'm not expecting anything in return. I just want you to eat. When the food came, Robert ate like he hadn't eaten in weeks. Because he hadn't. Fred ate slowly, watching him. Robert, can I ask you something? Yeah. Do you have anywhere to go tonight? After this? Robert shook his head. No, shelters are full. I'll find a doorway somewhere. I'll be okay. What if I could find you somewhere warm to sleep? Just for tonight? Where? Let me make a phone call. Fred went to the payphone in the corner of the diner, called a number he had memorized. A tired voice answered. Hello? Pastor Mike? It's Fred Rogers. I'm so sorry to call so late. Fred? It's almost 1 a.m. Is everything okay? I need to ask you for a favor. There's a man here. His name is Robert. He's a veteran. He's homeless. He needs a place to sleep tonight. Does the church still have that emergency shelter space? We do. But Fred, it's the middle of the night. I'd have to drive down there and open it up. I know. And I'm sorry to ask. But Robert needs help. And I don't know where else to turn. There was a long pause. Then Mike said, Okay, I'll meet you at the church in 20 minutes. Thank you, Mike. Fred hung up and went back to the table. Robert, I found you a place to stay tonight. A church about 10 minutes from here. They have a shelter space. It's warm. It's safe. And you can stay there as long as you need. Robert stared at him. You did that? Just now? Yes. Why? Because you need a place to sleep. And I'm able to help you find one. That's reason enough. They walked to the church together. Fred, Robert, and Pastor Mike. The shelter space was small but clean. A bed. A bathroom. A heater. Robert stood in the doorway, staring at the bed like he couldn't believe it was real. This is for me? He asked quietly. Yes, Pastor Mike said. You can stay here tonight. Tomorrow, if you want, we can talk about what comes next. We have some programs that might be able to help you. Robert turned to Fred. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. You saved my life tonight. You know that, right? If you'd let them arrest me, I don't know what would have happened. I was at the end. I was thinking about ending it. And then you showed up. And you didn't call me a criminal. You didn't treat me like trash. You treated me like a person. Fred's eyes were wet. You are a person, Robert. And you matter. You've always mattered. Robert started crying. Really crying. Fred stepped forward and hugged him. And Robert, this broken, homeless veteran collapsed into Fred's arms and sobbed. Fred left the church at 2 a.m. He drove home. Joanne was asleep. He didn't tell her what had happened. Not that night. He just went to bed, exhausted but at peace. The next morning, Fred went back to WQED. The broken window had been boarded up. Security had filed a report. The station manager called Fred into his office. "Fred, I heard what happened last night. A homeless man broke into the building? He didn't break in. He was my guest. Fred, he broke a window. And I told the police not to press charges. Why? Because he needed help. Not an arrest record." The station manager sighed. "Fred, you can't just invite homeless people into the studio. It's a liability. What if he'd been dangerous?" "He wasn't dangerous. He was desperate. There's a difference. But how did you know that?" "I talked to him. I listened to him. And I saw a person who needed help." "Fred, you took a huge risk. Maybe, but it was the right thing to do." Fred didn't see Robert again for 6 months. Then one day, he got a letter. "Dear Mr. Rogers, you probably don't remember me. My name is Robert. You found me in your studio 6 months ago. You kept me from getting arrested. You bought me dinner. You found me a place to sleep. I wanted to let you know what happened after that night. Pastor Mike helped me get into a veterans program. They got me into counseling for my PTSD. They helped me find a job, nothing fancy, just maintenance work at a school. But it's steady, and it's honest. I've been sober for 4 months now. I have an apartment. It's small, but it's mine. I'm trying to reconnect with my daughter. I don't know if she'll want to see me, but I'm trying. None of this would have happened if you hadn't shown me kindness that night. You could have let them arrest me. You could have treated me like a criminal. But you didn't. You treated me like a human being. And that made me want to be one again. Thank you. Mr. Rogers, thank you for seeing me when everyone else looked away. Robert Fred read the letter 3 times. Then he put it in a drawer in his desk, along with hundreds of other letters from people whose lives he'd touched. He never told anyone about Robert. Never mentioned it in an interview. Never used it as an example of his kindness. Because for Fred, it wasn't about being seen as kind. It was just about being kind. 20 years later, 1997, Fred was speaking at a conference about children and media. After his speech, during the Q&A, someone asked, "Mr. Rogers, what do you think is the most important thing you've ever done?" Fred thought for a long moment. Everyone expected him to talk about the show, about Jeff Erlanger, about testifying before Congress. Instead, Fred said, "I don't know if it's the most important thing, but there was a night, a long time ago, when I met someone who needed help. He'd made some mistakes. He was at the end of his rope, and I had a choice. I could treat him like a problem to be solved, or I could treat him like a person who mattered. I chose to treat him like a person. And I think that's what we're all supposed to do. Every single day, with every person we meet, not because it's easy, not because it's convenient, but because every person deserves to be seen, to be valued, to be reminded that they matter. That's the most important thing any of us can do." Epilogue, February 27th, 2003. Fred Rogers died on February 27th, 2003. His funeral was attended by hundreds of people whose lives he'd touched. One of them was a man in his late 50s, wearing a simple suit. He stood in the back, quiet and respectful. After the service, a reporter noticed him crying. "Did you know Fred Rogers?" The reporter asked. The man nodded. "He saved my life." "How?" 26 years ago, I broke into his studio. I was homeless, desperate. At the end, he could have had me arrested. Instead, he bought me dinner, found me a place to sleep, treated me like I mattered. I've been sober for 25 years now. I have a job, a home. I reconnected with my daughter. I have 2 grandchildren. None of that would exist if Fred Rogers hadn't shown me kindness that night. He didn't do it for the cameras. He didn't do it for recognition. He did it because that's who he was. When everyone else saw a criminal, he saw a person. And that made all the difference. The reporter wrote down every word, but the man asked not to be named in the article. Fred never told anyone about that night. He kept it private, out of respect for me. I want to honor that, but I wanted people to know Fred Rogers wasn't just kind on television. He was kind in real life. When no one was watching, when there was nothing to gain, that's who he really was.